All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It is Tuesday, and you know what that means. Time for some Tuesday Tao, living the wisdom of the Tao, and reading from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we are all the way up to the 77th verse of the Tao Te Ching, in which Wayne Dyer titles his little essay summing up the 77th verse, Living by Offering the Surplus. By offering the surplus, ladies and gentlemen, and what do you think that could mean metaphorically or spiritually for us in our lives? And so it's been a fantastic journey, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting closer and closer to the final and 81st verse of the Tao Te Ching. And this has been a great book. So I hope you've joined me, and I hope you're ready, ladies and gentlemen. Got yourself some tea or a beverage of your choice. And the tea today says we can always start again. We can always start again, ladies and gentlemen. So, with that being said, let's dive into the 77th verse of the Tao Te Ching. It begins by saying, "The way of heaven is like drawing a bow. The high is lowered, the low is raised. When it is surplus, it reduces. When it is deficient, it increases. The Tao of mankind is the opposite. It reduces the deficiency in order to add to the surplus. It strips the needy to serve those who have too much. Only the one who has the Tao offers his surplus to others. What man has more than enough and gives it to the world? Only the man of the Tao. The master can keep giving because there is no end to his wealth. He acts without expectation, succeeds without taking credit, and does not think that he is better than anyone else." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the 77th verse of the Tao Te Ching, a profound and powerful spiritual and philosophical, possibly even life-changing philosophy. This is fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. It was a deep one. I like the metaphor of the drawing of the bow. The way of heaven is like drawing a bow. The high is lowered and the low is raised. And when it is too much, or surplus, when there is too much, this way of heaven, or the way of the Tao, it reduces the surplus. When it is deficient, it increases to always be at harmony, maybe. This is just me kind of thinking this out. The Tao of mankind, though, is the opposite. We reduce the deficiency in order to add to the surplus, which sounds good, but then it strips the needy to serve those who have too much. And then it goes into a person of the Tao, man or woman, ladies and gentlemen, offers our surplus to others. So we can see where this may be leaning as far as the subject and the lesson for today. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the master can keep giving because there is no end to our wealth, to his wealth, her wealth. Living by offering the surplus. Wayne Dyer once again titled his breakdown of this 77th verse of the Tao Te Ching. And he begins by saying, quote, "If you view the ways of heaven from a distance, you'll find that nature is perfect. The Tao, force, God, universe, is at work, invisibly keeping a divine balance. Once again, doing all things while seemingly doing nothing at all, or doing nothing and leaving nothing undone, as the Tao says." And so Wayne tells us this. He says, "When I was in Sedona, Arizona, for instance, I took a tour of the forested areas in the steppes of the majestic Red Rock Mountains, which is a very beautiful area, ladies and gentlemen. After I lamented the recent fires that had decimated so many trees, the guide explained how this had actually been nature at work. So the things that we think are bad from our human perspective, sometimes from a zoomed out, bigger, different perspective, it is actually not bad and part of a natural process. And so going back to what Wayne is saying here, after seeing the fires that had decimated so many trees, the guide explained that this had actually been nature at work. Quote, for millions of years, he explained, when the forest gets too thick, nature's lightning strikes, and then that thins out the forest. With such an occurrence, the timber would choke on its own surplus. So without, such an occurrence, the timber would choke on its own surplus. Going back to this idea of the surplus and reducing when it is necessary or increasing when it is deficient in a natural, universal law sort of way or grand organized design sort of way to create a balance and harmony in nature. And that is one of the things that I've always kind of, after getting, after doing this for more than a year, and I've contemplated these ideas for longer than that time, being a student, so to speak, of Wayne Dyer and these philosophies. And it's like there is a way that you can describe God or the universe or the Tao, the force, but the Tao through this understanding of nature and the concept of harmony and how those work together. It's very fascinating to me, ladies and gentlemen. Now, continuing. Observe nature, Lao-tzu says. Its deficiencies, if deficiencies exist, don't continue to reduce what's already in short supply. The lesson in these final verses, Wayne continues, relate to governing the masses by staying harmonized with the Tao. Lao-tzu seems to rail against people in positions of political power who took from the needy to give themselves more of what they don't need. In today's world, we can see evidence of this practice in a myriad of ways. But especially, Wayne says, in lawmakers voting themselves benefits to be paid for by everyone else. They give themselves 95% retirement packages, medical insurance for life, limousines, private parking places on public land, and free first-class travel, even as they strip the needy and serve those who have too much. And in countries where starvation is rampant, and it's not unusual to see large amounts of food and supplies stacked on docks while people die from malnourishment because government representatives think they're above all of that. So Wayne's making a powerful point here. And it was somebody I also took great influence from over the years in more of a spiritual way. He actually led me to Wayne Dyer. So thank you and a shout out to Matthew Belair. And he's still doing his podcast. So check out his YouTube channel, Matt Belair. But he put it so simply. He's like, if we just put $1 million together for a certain amount of rice, couldn't we work on solving these hunger issues in the world? And so after doing a lot of research, he found out a lot of the things that Wayne was just discussing in that last paragraph. And it is important for us to understand that that sometimes these things are going on. So let's continue, ladies and gentlemen. Wayne says the 77th verse of the Tao Te Ching that we began with suggests thinking about the surpluses we can put back into circulation to decrease the deficiencies that exist elsewhere in our world. So what do you mean, Wayne? What are we talking about here? Well, Wayne continues. Lao-tzu asks you and me to put the wisdom of the Tao, the wisdom of the ages, of this verse to work in our personal lives by seeing what we have but don't need as an opportunity to be Tao people, quote unquote. Lao-tzu isn't asking our government, political leaders, or captains of industry, but us personally. And that's what a lot of these very large, I'll add here, that these very large metaphors, they're spoken about through the many verses of the Tao Te Ching and the paradoxical, spiritual, mystical nature that it is described. It often seems that it's meant for, something much larger than ourselves, but this is always a metaphor to what we can begin to attempt to apply in our lives to create an ability within ourselves to have a higher quality of experience. I liked how somebody put it in the comments one time, have a higher understanding of the nature of reality in order to increase the quality of our experience. And so that's what we're all about here on this channel, seeking to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, through a greater awareness and understanding of our world and our lives and our thoughts and all of those things, ladies and gentlemen. So it's fairly simple that we should know this. I mean, like I've said before, it's common sense, but it is not always common practice. And so we need to put into place this way of living in our lives. For us personally, quote, what a man has more than enough. I wasn't sure where I was going. What man, there we go. I was like, wait a minute. What man, ladies and gentlemen, has more than enough and gives it to the world? Question. The answer is only the man or woman of the Tao, or of a different way. When there are enough of us, there will be a pool from which we Tao Center people, or higher consciousness people, if you're thinking of it on the scale of consciousness from Dr. David Hawkins, that will emerge to take the places of the old structures that we are hopefully seeing begin to change before our eyes, ladies and gentlemen. Now, there are some out there who are not so optimistic, but I like to say that it is getting faster than it's getting faster. It's getting better faster, ladies and gentlemen, than it ever has before, even than the most optimistic of us can imagine. But that is just my own perspective. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you find what you look for. What you think about expands. Secret of the universe. So if you don't get anything else from this video, remember, you find what you're looking for, and what you think about expands for you in your life. So pay attention to what it is you're looking for and what it is you're focused on. All right, back to what we were saying here. Then, once we hit that critical mass, or the 100th monkey, we've talked about that before, where enough of us reach a certain level of consciousness that, the tide that raises all boats, so to speak, then these kind of people, those among us who are destined to be in a position of leadership, will emerge to govern. And we will put into place, the book continues, the way of living offered to us in this 77th verse of the Tao Te Ching, which Wayne Dyer entitled, Living by Offering the Surplus. But there's another name for it, ladies and gentlemen, and it's escaping me right now. Living generously, spiritual generosity. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a title. Once again, I always have a hard time finding out what to title these videos, but it always ends up working just fine, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're getting value, consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, then thank you so much. I love and appreciate your support, and I appreciate seeing those of you that are regulars here that join me in the premieres, in the live chat. And so Thank you. Let us continue, ladies and gentlemen. It's a fairly simple concept to understand that a surplus of money or possessions, but the world actually symbolizes much more. What are you talking about? The word. Little dyslexia today, ladies and gentlemen, if that's what that is. The word surplus actually symbolizes much more than a bunch of money or things. And so, if we're trying to put into place this wisdom of the surplus and offering the surplus and generosity and sharing and those ideas, how do we do this? Understanding the word surplus. So, for example, Wayne continues, there's the surplus of a joy that you feel, that you can offer to yourself and your family. Interesting. So when there is a surplus of joy, you can offer that instead of a physical thing. Then there's the excess of intellectual prowess, talent, compassion, health, strength, and kindness. You can also share all of those things with the world. And I think that's a powerful idea. If you are happy, then you should share it, because there's a lot of people out there that aren't experiencing happiness for themselves, whether it be one reason or another, ladies and gentlemen. But share it. If you are somebody who is in a good, who is feeling good, share that with other people, because a lot more of us need it than we know. And that is why I am here, sharing this with you, ladies and gentlemen, so that we can begin to change our thoughts and in turn change our life and increase the quality of our lives through a greater understanding. And so, now seeing the word surplus as much more than just money or possessions, but the idea of joy that you can share, or intellectual ability that you can share, or talent that you can teach or use to help others or your family, health, strength, and kindness, ladies and gentlemen. We can share all of these things. And when we see deficiencies in these areas, and joy and abundance and educational opportunities, perfect health, or even sobriety and anything like these, make your own surpluses available. Lao-tzu, Wayne continues, urges you to look at what's deficient and be an instrument of increasing, to balance out and create the harmony that was described in the first line of this verse. This is much deeper than I thought it would go, ladies and gentlemen, but this balance, to where the way of heaven is like drawing a bow, and the high is lowered and the low is raised, and when it is surplus, it reduces, and when it is deficient, it increases. And so it is our mission to be an instrument of this knowledge and this wisdom. Be an instrument of increasing and look at what is deficient, rather than being a collector of more, which marginalizes and divides the oneness that we are a part of, that is all of life. The force, or God, or the universe, or the Tao, or whatever that be for you, ladies and gentlemen. And so, practice these new ways of being, Wayne says, that are more aligned with the way of the Tao. Tuesday Tao, ladies and gentlemen, living the wisdom of the Tao. Once again, coming to us from the late Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. And I can't thank him enough. Thank you, Dr. Dyer. Reduce the surplus. So this is the first lesson here on how we can begin to apply the wisdom of the 77th verse into our lives, even though it's given us that already. It's just been fantastic with generosity and giving and the spiritual power of the balance of that. But number one, ladies and gentlemen, reduce the surplus. So reduce what is in excess So what you have too much of in your life, and then offer it where it can be utilized, where there is too little of it. That's profound in its own on that sentence. That would take a lot of contemplation. And remember, constant contemplation is the key, ladies and gentlemen. And so begin with your stuff, Wayne says, clothing, furniture, tools, equipment, radios, cameras, or anything you just have too much of. Don't sell it, he says, which is our culture so much today, to take all the things you got and make a profit on eBay. Didn't mean for that to rhyme, but that was just fine, ladies and gentlemen. So, but he says, don't sell it, rather give it away if you can afford to, parentheses. So, once again, the old adage, remember to tie your horses up, even though you're letting go and flowing with God. Like, you still got to be practical about these mystical philosophies, ladies and gentlemen. And so don't ask for recognition for these kind of charitable acts. Simply behave in harmony with the universe, with the Tao, the force, with God, by reducing your surplus. Then think about your intangible abundance of health, joy, kindness, love, or inner peace, and seek ways to offer those glorious feelings to those who could benefit from your bounty. Number 2, ladies and gentlemen, what Wayne is telling us how we can apply the wisdom of this 77th verse into our own lives. Be an instrument of increasing. So you decrease your surplus, and then you become an instrument of increasing other surpluses. Just as nature fills voids by maintaining the cyclical balance necessary to our world, be an instrument of increasing where you observe deficiencies. Practice giving by dedicating a portion of your earnings to be used to ease deficits. Interesting. For as Lao-tzu points out, the master can keep giving because there is no end to his wealth. And this is the interesting thing, a key to manifesting. Or, a lot of people want to create wealth for themselves. And it's like the moment that you are not so attached to the attainment and the hoarding and the keeping of it, but more on purpose and what it is that you are going about doing in your life, the results kind of take care of themselves from being in the process so much, rather than being focused on the result and not focused on the process. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, it's a paradox, like all of this mystical, spiritual, philosophical knowledge is. And so once again, if you're getting value, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. So practice giving. The master can keep giving because there is no end to his wealth. If you want to become abundant, you must be generous and willing to share in the abundance, because if you are not generous, then you are living in a mindset of scarcity, at least at that time. And scarcity is the mindset of lack, and lack creates more of that in your life. So if you want to be abundant, you need to be willing to give and be generous. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you can't offer money, though, to those who are less fortunate, that is just fine. Say a silent blessing for them and send them love. I added the send them love part, but, send them thoughts of what it is that you want for yourself. And so, look for opportunities. This is funny that it says this, because I do this all the time, and I never read this line yet. I haven't gotten this far in the book, but offer a prayer when you hear an ambulance or a police car siren. And that might be a weird thing for some people to think of, but when you hear that, you know that somebody at least is in distress some way. And if we are all one in a spiritual sense, or even in a realistic, more concrete sense and physical reality, we are all humanity. And when any human being is hurt, it kind of hurts the generic human being overall. And so we need to begin to create a high level of empathy for those that are a part of us. This is a weird way of describing it, ladies and gentlemen, but once you get into these spiritual philosophies of oneness and being a part of God, then you realize that there's different names for whatever that great universal life force or organizing energy is. But then, so anyways, there's a song by Rush that I like, and it says, all that we can do is wish them well. And it describes all these situations to where, like, you would want to do something, but a lot of times the best that you can do is wish them well. And so with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, do the Tao now. At the end, this is why you want to get this book for yourself, to put it on your shelf so that you can reference it. But at the end of every one of these chapters, in the verses, these sections, Wayne Dyer gives us a little paragraph called Do the Tao Now, and how we can practically apply the mystical wisdom of each of these verses into our lives. So I have this book linked below the video in the description. Just hit more on the description there and expand it down to the link, take you to Amazon, and get yourself this book for yourself to put it on your shelf, ladies and gentlemen. So look for opportunities to fill the empty spaces in other people's lives with things or loving energy in the form of kindness, compassion, joy, and forgiveness. And now, do the Tao now, ladies and gentlemen. Plan a day. How can we, Wayne? How can we put this wisdom in action into our lives? Plan a day when you make a point of getting rid of some of your surplus. Making sure that you part with something that's useful elsewhere, and so it increases a deficiency elsewhere. Look around for things that you don't need or use. For instance, I just glanced up from my writing and spotted some legal pads, 3 DVDs, and a toaster that I haven't used in 6 months. Wayne always gives us funny examples of things. So if you can scan the room, but this is perfect. I see we can relate to this. You can scan the room right now. As you're reading these words, there's probably 100 things you can see in my background, ladies and gentlemen, and in all of our backgrounds, I'm sure, unless you're a very clean person. I'm an artist, so as you can see, I lead a different style. But as Wayne's teaching us here, if you can scan the room now, he says, I'm positive you'll see things that you can easily categorize as a surplus. So you don't look at things, what do I want to get rid of? You look at it like, what is there, a very high amount of that is unnecessarily a high amount of. Like he said, legal pads. Sometimes I have a giant stack of them sitting around at the moment. So schedule time to put some of that excess stuff, surplus, into the world wherever it is needed, and find a way to do so. Now, this may take a lot of thought, but keep it simple, ladies and gentlemen. One step is far more important than, being stuck in perfection procrastination, if that makes sense. But you can also pick up those things in your line of vision at this moment and drop them off where they'll be welcomed today. Interesting. Simply, ladies and gentlemen, become a man or a woman of the Tao and begin to live the wisdom of the Tao, and we can change our thoughts and change our lives. Boom, ladies and gentlemen. That is a boom to the profound, life-changing, powerful spiritual wisdom of the Tao and the 77th verse of the Tao Te Ching. And that was powerful, ladies and gentlemen. Next week, it is the 78th verse, entitled Living Like Water. And I always love the spiritual references and descriptions of this power of God in relation to describing water and the nature of water. And so, very powerful, ladies and gentlemen. I really hope you got value. I know I did. I always get something from these. I wanted to take a week off. Last week, I had some stuff working on. I got the plants planted. We got peppers and strawberries. They're all small. They're only, little guys so far, but got a little cucumber plant growing, tomatoes, all the good things, ladies and gentlemen. And so sometimes got to get some projects done, and I hope so everybody else out there is enjoying this time of the year, and hopefully you're safe, and hopefully it is beautiful wherever you are. Once again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, remember to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment. Seek to discover a greater awareness and a greater understanding of the wisdom of the ages, and seek to discover the mysteries of our history, ladies and gentlemen. And also keep in mind that there is no way to happiness, because happiness is the way. It is an activity, or what we must do to try to work on, to practice, to bring to life. And when we can do that, all the things we've been telling ourselves, oh, I'll be happy when I get there, or if I'm this kind of person, or whatever, will become irrelevant, because then we are there. And hopefully the entire journey to where we want to go is wonderful. Cheers, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Once again, love and appreciate you all. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and share this with somebody who is like-minded, because I know this can at least, once again, ladies and gentlemen, where there is a surplus, sometimes it is the videos we watch. Share it with those who have a deficiency of that in their life. And remember, be the change that you want to see. Be the example. All right. Love you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back tomorrow with some Wednesday wisdom, diving deeper into the lost wisdom of the pharaohs in the Hermetica, in the section titled The Universal and the Particular, where Hermes continues describing the zodiac and how it makes each individual human being different. Very fascinating. I also love the mystical. All right, ladies and gentlemen, be good till tomorrow.